Hello, this is a status update on terms of the pirate character Katrina. Um, and so I wanted to talk about where I started with this model and where I am now and where I'm going. So I got this model on Tuesday, so I've been working on it for about 6 days now. And we can see here that the clothing is multi-layered, but right now I don't want to focus on the clothing. I just want to get the skin binding and stuff done. In terms of the character's actual features, in general, it's pretty good, pretty well set up. There isn't a whole lot of geometry in a sense that it's very taxing on the system, but there still seems to be poking through here. It's especially noticeable when you zoom out. This seems to be an issue with the setup materials, but when I get around to making it so that way there's some transparency, I'll also fix how the materials are set up, because the materials right now are set up for RenderMan 21.7 and the current version available to non-commercial is 22.2. Yeah, we have a whole lot of clothing that's overlaying, but like I said, I just wanted to get the skin binding done, with the only exception being that I also included the boots, plan on including the boots in the base system as to allow for, well, better foot roll understanding. Of course, now let us go look at, don't remember how, that's not the right button. Isolate. There we go. And so this is where I am currently. So I have systems in place that will allow you to turn on and off visibility for a more visible foot control grab. But of course, since it's dialable, I wanted it so that way artists could go through and turn it on and off as they please. It's not keyable though, because it's not something that will actually be visible on renders. There is that. There's a similar situation with the hand, and there is a reference angle that it will go by depending on how the artist feels best represents the control. Right now, none of the controls are actually wired in, just because I wanted to get them all laid out nice and evenly distributed before I actually get there. Distributed in a way that both makes sense for what the control is and its relation to other controls. In terms of the actual joint placement, right now I have a very basic bipedal system in place with additional breast and face joints, as I felt the face joints would be easier for me to understand having a background in medicine. And yes, right now, current implemented features that I like to highlight are a face controller that will actually go with the face regardless of how it is turning. There is a few issues with the current proxy in terms of how it handles being turned at extreme angles, but of course it only starts at a point that would be uncomfortable to the user. There are a few things I'm still trying to decide, for example, whether or not I want the foot roll to be an external controller, a multiple controllers, or part of the foot controller. And of course, similar situation with the hand. And the hand also has controls like this, and just to showcase, there's quite a lot going on right here in terms of joints. It's a little hard to look at, but as you can see, it actually follows along with the joints. There's also a system currently in place for spaghetti arms. I felt that there isn't really enough geometry in the character as is to support more than 4 joints in the arms and 6 joints in the leg, but I may go on later to add in a few more joints when I actually do a high resolution version of the character, just by smoothing it out, because its geometry actually is set up to be smoothed out properly. In terms of solutions that I had to problems that arise, I'm gonna actually go back to soloing this character. So the eyes actually were squished with how they're set up on the original character, and so to help preserve this while still making it functional, I went through and on the eye group, the lattice. The lattice actually right now is set to be invisible to the system, but I'm actually going to turn off display overrides so that way we can see what they look like. So I'm going to actually take everything in the eye group, solo it. So the lattice then does this squish effect, but it means that when these eye joints are rotated, they actually rotate like an eyeball. Well, as much as the model will let. Of course, there's also something else I'm trying to decide is whether or not I want to use joints or blend shapes for the eyebrows. Blend shapes would have the added advantage that they'd be very useful for me. However, they would come with the issue that because the model uses XGen for all of its hair and feather physics, just have them deleted and disabled in this instance of the character, because I'll add them back in later once I have all the clothes and stuff working as intended. But the eyebrows, they are actual planes that sit on top of the skull, not part of the skull. And so I would need blend shapes for both the eyebrows as the hair particle spawner and the head. And so that's where joints would become more useful, in the sense that it would just be the same binding raised up onto the eyebrows. So I think that covers it in terms of things specific to this character. One thing I would like to highlight is an extension to this control that we have made in the past to help allow for that we have made in the past for so we're just going to delete that. So now we only have the negative side or the right side of the character available, and so I'm going to go through and select everything that is 01. Now some of these joints are actually have been placed with hierarchy, so I'll actually need to go through and deselect a couple things just so that way I do not oh, it should not have selected that. How odd. Of course, just making sure. So of course now it only has these selected, so it should work. Before it was not working, saying that it stopped somewhere. Not sure. There. Okay. Ooh. And it keeps getting caught on something. This is quite peculiar. I actually have no idea what it's getting caught on. Getting caught on something. Not entirely sure what, but how the tool should work. It should allow me to select multiple bones in an existing system. So I'm just going to hand select these bones then. And normal joint mirroring, when it is done, there's quite a number of joints here in the face right now. That's a center joint. Of course, I have every right side object selected that I want to mirror over. I tell it to mirror over, and it does that. If you just simply try and, hold on, rigging. If you just try and mirror over joints, so search for RT, LT, mirror, it says that there are too many arguments. And so what it's doing is it's going through every single item that's selected, and it's attempting to mirror it over. As I have found out, having recorded this a couple times, encountering the same error, I'm going to have to make some kind of system that catches whether or not it's geometry or non-joint objects. So yeah, within the next week, definitely by Tuesday, I will have all of the controls laid out and mostly constrained. I don't want to make promises that I can't upkeep, but I definitely can upkeep that there will be all of them. They'll all be mirrored over, and they'll be mostly done. So I think that covers it. I've actually done quite a bit of research, and it will also be available on the documentation, so, along with so I've done research, I've written out toolset ideas, so that will all be available with the model and such in the main comment section. So yes, thank you for watching.